The Bible says in James chapter 1, verse 27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I'm Literally Siemens, and you're watching the Kids Min series. In this video, we're going to be looking at teaching kids who have faced trauma. So in this video, we're going to be looking at three things. We're going to be looking at what the child needs, we're going to be looking at what the family needs, and we're going to be looking at what your volunteers need. Now, this is a very small look at what you need. It's a really quick version that I give when I go to churches and I give a talk to the churches. So if you want more information about that, you can contact me through my website, literallysiemens.com. So Christians are doing a really great job of reaching out to children who need families. As a foster and adoptive parent myself, I'm in a lot of groups with foster and adoptive parents, and every group that I'm in is filled with Christians. But as I talk to Christians who are fostering and adopting, I hear often that the church can sometimes actually be more harmful than helpful. Not on purpose, but the church wants to be helpful, but they don't know how to teach a child who's gone through trauma. So I'm going to help you just a little bit with that. But like I said, this is just a quick version, but I would love to come to your church and give you a more full version of this. So what does the child need? So just for a second, I want you to think about the thing you're most afraid of. So just imagine that in your head right now. So I want you to imagine you're there. So you're either on the top of a roller coaster, or there's a giant snake looking at you, or there's spiders in your hair. So just imagine that you're right there right now and picture what that is like. So what does that feel like? Like your heart is racing, it's pounding, maybe there's that sudden sweat, your stomach is hurting. Then imagine while you're still there in that same situation, you have to learn something. You're not going to be able to learn something when you are having that same feeling. So children who've gone through trauma, they experience these same feelings when they don't feel safe. Their heart is pounding, their mind is racing, their stomach is turning, they might even have that sudden sweat. And it's really not possible for them to learn. So you have to take the fear away from the child before they're able to learn. So every child will have this different, and they will have a different thing that helps them take that fear away. So you're going to have to talk to the foster or adoptive parents and find out from them what they need. So I know a foster child that absolutely thrives when she's with her foster sister, but when she's away from her, she really just shuts down. So this child was brought to a youth group, and the youth pastor actually separated the girl from her foster sister. And the foster mom went to the youth leader and asked, like, can they please be put together? And the youth leader said, you know what? I really like to make children step out of their comfort zones. I think it's good for them. Okay, maybe. But for a foster child, their entire life is out of their comfort zone. They've been picked up and put into a brand new family. Like, everything is out of their comfort zone. So when they're in your church, you give them what they need to be in their comfort zone. And another foster parent told me about, she had a 4-year-old child that she took to church, and the 4-year-old child still had a soother. So she dropped the kid off, and when she came to pick her up, the kid was like a complete mess, like so stressed. And the soother was up on this really high shelf. And so the teacher took it down and gave it to the mom. And then she said in like a really condescending voice, you know, I know you're new at this parenting thing, but most children by the age of 4 don't have soothers. Well, yeah, most children by the age of 4 don't have soothers, and most children by the age of 4 hadn't gone through what this particular child had gone through. She needed a soother to feel safe. Then give the kid a soother. Like, what's the problem? So the first thing that a child needs is to feel safe. And you might say, hey, our environment is a very safe environment. And I'm not saying a child needs to be safe. I'm assuming that you've already taken steps to make sure the child is safe. Like, that's an obvious. But it's not that the child needs to be safe. It's that the child needs to feel safe. So you need to talk to the parents and find out what it is that the child's going to need in order to feel safe. So that's the first thing, they need to feel safe. The second thing is they need to be connected to a family. So for a child who has lost their family or is in the process of losing their family, they might think this is not something that they need. They might not feel safe. They don't necessarily want a family. Family has not worked out for them before, so they think that's something that they don't need. But we understand that a child actually needs a really good, stable family to do well and to thrive. Your job is to help the child connect with their family. Now, what a lot of youth pastors and children's workers think is that it's their job to connect with the child and to bond and build a relationship with the child. That's actually not your job, not your responsibility, and will actually be harmful to the child, because the child needs to be building a relationship with their new family, with their parents. That's the relationship that needs to be built up, and they're not going to be able to build up two relationships at the same time. So everything that you do needs to be pushing the child towards building a relationship with their new parents and with their new family. And that, of course, is kind of a complicated thing to do, but that's something that I can talk to you about when I come to your church to speak. Now, one of the big no-nos is do not keep a secret for the child from their new family. And that might seem obvious to you, but sometimes in churches we can put like a Christian spin on things and then do something that's obviously not good, but we make it sound good with a Christian spin. So, for example, if a teen comes to you and they want counseling for an issue that they're facing. So you say, well, I don't want to break the child's trust. So, I'm going to give them counseling. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to help them. But I don't want to tell the parents because that's going to break trust. And I really like that she's built trust with me. No, absolutely not. The parents need to know. For one thing, the parents need the information in order to parent the child properly. And for another thing, the parents know more about the child than you do. There's probably a lot of things they haven't told you, and you can't counsel them because you don't have all the information. So absolutely, you need to push the child towards the relationship with their new family. Now, the reason that the child may quickly bond with you and you may feel like you're doing a great thing because you're really bonding and connecting, a child who's gone through trauma, they do want to bond and they do want to connect, and they will overly bond and overly connect with youth leaders and teachers and coaches, but it's really their parents that they should be connecting with and learning how to trust their parents or whoever is their caregiver at their time. They need to be bonding and learning to trust with that person, and they're afraid to trust that person because the caregivers they've had in the past haven't worked out for them. But if you want to actually help them and you want to actually help them to be functioning adults later in their life, you need to help them to learn to trust the caregivers who are in their life. And that means you are pushing them into that relationship, and you're doing everything you can to help that relationship grow, not your relationship with the child, but the parent's relationship with the child. So the third thing that a child needs, of course, is Jesus, and that's why they're in your class, and that's why they're there for you to teach them about Jesus and teach them about the Bible. And of course, I do lots of sessions on that, on how to reach a child for Christ. So the fourth thing that a child needs is time. So a child who has faced trauma needs time to heal. And the good thing is that they can heal and they can recover and they can be completely functioning people in society, and you can help them with that, but you need to make sure you are giving them time. So imagine a child comes into your class who's in a wheelchair. Would you say to that child, what is wrong with you? You're 7. 7-year-olds should be able to walk by now. I mean, you're just being lazy. Like, you wouldn't need that chair. If someone just took the chair away from you, you'd be able to walk. You're just completely being lazy. Well, we would never do that because we can see that is an outward need that child has. So a child that has faced trauma, their needs are inward and we can't see them. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. So we have to give the same patience and the same love that we would give to a child who has an outward need. So this means giving time. A statement that every foster parent knows is this: it is the stage, not the age. So you need to figure out what stage the child is at, and that might not necessarily be the age that they're at. And then you need to have what you expect from that child to be based on the stage that they are in and not the age that they're in. And the reason is that when somebody goes through trauma, another statement that a lot of foster parents know is that under stress, we regress, which means when you're put under stress, you don't always act your age. And you know that's true for you as an adult as well. We can have little temper tantrums ourselves when we're stressed. So when a child is stressed, they will regress and they will go back into a different stage. So you need to figure out what stage they're at, lower your expectations to be at that stage, not their age, and then to help them to be able to move into the next stage of life. Another thing that I like to tell people is you can't teach somebody to read a chapter book if they've never learned the alphabet. So if a child hasn't learned the social skills that you would teach a toddler, you can't expect them to learn the social skills that you would expect from a preteen or a teenager. So we have to take them all the way back to the beginning or to whatever stage that they are at, and we need to help them at that stage. And this is going to mean having conversations ongoing, multiple conversations with the child's caregiver. Okay, so to sum up what a child needs to feel safe, a child needs Jesus, a child needs to be connected to a family, and a child needs time. So what does the family need? So foster and adoptive families who are caring for children who have faced trauma, well, they need a break. That's what they need. They need a break. So pick a foster and adoptive family and connect with them and find a way to help out. We're great. As a church, we're great when a couple has a new baby, or even when someone adopts a baby, because we understand that. We've been there. We've been the family that brings home a new child. So we know what a family needs. But when someone brings home a 10-year-old or someone brings home a teenager, we don't know what to do with that. So that's totally okay. It's okay if as a church or even as a person watching this video, you don't really know how to support that person. That's all right. What's not okay is just say, well, then I'm just going to do nothing, because they're still a new family. This is still a family that is learning how to adjust to new changes, and they need you, and they need support, and they need a break, and they just need to know that you care. All right, the second thing that the parents need is to be connected. And what happens at this point is that they lose all of their connections. We only have, and I could say this as a foster parent, adoptive parent, we only have so much energy that we can put into relationships. So if you're trying to connect with a child who's been through trauma, and you're trying to build a relationship with them as their parent, you're not going to have any energy left out to reach out to your friends. And so what ends up happening is that friends basically just disappear and you end up with no friends. Really, this is a time in your life when you need the most friends and need the most help and support, and it's a time when usually most of that disappears. I recently asked a group of adoptive moms if they were lonely, and every single one of them said yes. They said basically they have no friends left, and their connection groups that they have are online, and they're mostly other adoptive and foster families that they connect with. So we have to understand that adoptive and foster families need to be connected to the church. They need that help and support, but all that connection and all that help and support, it's going to be a one-way thing, at least for the first little while. It's going to be the church reaching out to the family and making sure they're connected, because the family isn't going to be reaching out back, and the family is not going to be trying to connect themselves because they just don't have the energy to do that, even though it is what they want to do. The third thing that the family needs is marriage support. So my husband and I, we do a weekly date night, and that's essential to me to surviving life. It's Thursday right now as I'm making this video, and tonight it's going to be date night, and every Thursday morning I'm so excited because I know it's going to be date night. So you have to find ways to help keep their marriage support, and the church really needs to help with this. We want to make sure that our marriage couples are strong. And families who are raising children with trauma, a lot of times will end up separating or divorcing. So being able to help them and find ways to make sure that their marriage is staying strong, definitely a necessity. Okay, so we talked about what the child needs, we talked about what the family needs, and now what does your volunteers need? First of all, we want to support children who've gone through trauma. You're going to need to hire a coordinator who works with special needs. And this has to be a paid position, not a volunteer position. You need a full-time person on staff who can learn the confidential needs of the child and the family. So this way the parent has one person that they can go and talk to, that they can share important confidential information with, instead of having to go and talk to every single volunteer and every single Sunday school teacher and every single, if you're in Awana, every Awana leader, instead of having to go and have the same conversations with everyone, having one person that you can go and talk to who's not the children's pastor, because the children's pastor has they're already overworked. Don't add this to the children's pastor's job. They already have way too much to do. This needs to be a separate person. This can be for children and youth. So this person who can take care of all the way from kindergarten to grade 12, even preschool to grade 12. And they can make sure that the child's needs are being met. And this is a great thing to do, not even for fostering adoptive families, but for all the families who have children who have special needs. This is absolutely amazing. I know of so far, I've heard of one church who has this on staff, and every parent I talk to who has kids there says it's the best thing ever. You need to do that in your church. So that is the first thing you need to do. Hire someone who is your special needs coordinator. The second thing that you need to do is you need to give your staff training. And by training, I don't mean that they sit down in a room while you read off a list of things from your PowerPoint so that you can check the box in their file to say that they've had the training. I've sat through training like that, and I'm sure most of you guys have, and it's horrible. And you just watch the time and wonder if you can plan escape route somehow to get out of that class. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking actual training, which, like I said earlier in this video, I would love to come and help you do. Exciting training, interesting training. You won't be watching the time, and when it's finished, you'll say, what? That was so fast. Because that's the kind of training that you need to have. All right. The third thing your volunteers need is if a child needs one-on-one, then you have to have a one-on-one. It's not fair. I've done this before where I've had to teach a class or teaching a large group of kids, and you've got a couple kids in there who should have one-on-one and they don't, and you're trying to teach the lesson and at the same time discipline the kids, and you're just setting your volunteers up for failure, and they're going to leave and not want to volunteer anymore. So you need to make sure that you have one-on-one with kids who need one-on-one so that the person who is there teaching the class can teach the class and won't be teaching just one particular child. Because remember, every single kid coming into your junior church and your Sunday school has needs that need to be met. Every single one of them wants to feel loved, and so we need to make sure that we're able to do that. All right, let's make sure our churches are prepared to do what the Bible says. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I'm Laura Lee Siemens. This is Kids Mid Series.